Story 1 by Alex. Hi, I'm Alex, a 27-year-old delivery driver who lives in Mesa near Val Vista Drive. Since I was a child, I've been fascinated by the legends of the Arizona desert, especially the Dutchman's lost treasure, a myth about a gold mine hidden in the Superstition Mountains. The story of Jacob Waltz, a German miner who supposedly found a rich vein but died without revealing its location in 1891, has always intrigued me. I grew up hearing accounts of prospectors who disappeared in those mountains, some found lifeless, fueling rumors of a curse that protects gold. Although I never fully believed in curses, the idea of a hidden treasure in the desert always sparked my imagination. I live alone in a small apartment, and my job as a delivery man leads me to travel lonely roads at all hours. I like the freedom of the night, the silence of the desert, but I am also aware of the dangers, from wild animals to people with bad intentions. Still, he had never felt real fear until that October night. After a late delivery in Gilbert, I decided to take a back road near South Mountain Park. My shift was over, and instead of going straight home, I felt the urge to explore. I wanted to feel the thrill of being alone in the desert, under the full moon, like the seekers of old. I did not imagine that this decision would lead me to an encounter that still haunts me. It was a clear night, the full moon bathing the landscape in a silvery glow, causing the saguaros to rise like silent sentinels. Their shadows lengthened, twisted, dancing on the sandy ground, as if they had a life of their own. My truck was moving slowly, the engine whizzing in a silence that soon became oppressive. I had turned off the radio to enjoy the stillness, but this one was different. A void that seemed to absorb all sound. The air was fresh, but my skin stood on end, as if the desert itself was watching me. Suddenly, the GPS flickered and turned off. My phone had no signal. "Damn," I muttered, though it wasn't the first time I'd lost connection in the desert. But this time, the darkness seemed denser, more enveloping, as if the world had stopped. I kept driving, guided by the stars, but the road stretched endlessly, a black thread in the immensity. Then a strange hum ripped through the air, a distant murmur that he couldn't place. I rolled down the window, hoping to catch its source, but I only heard the creaking of the gravel under the tires and the racing beat of my heart. The feeling of being watched grew, as if the saguaros themselves were watching me. In the distance, among the cacti, I saw a fleeting flash, a light that turned on and off in the blink of an eye. I stopped, scanning the gloom, my breath ragged. Nothing. "It's just my nerves," I told myself, but my hands were shaking as I turned the engine back on. The murmur returned, clearer. "Help me." It was a female voice, weak but insistent, as if it came from inside the car. I looked in the rearview mirror, expecting to see something, but the back seat was empty. My skin stood on end. Then, on the roadside, I saw her, a silhouetted figure against the moonlight, waving her arms as if calling me. I slammed on the brakes, pointing my headlights at her. She was a young woman, in dusty, torn clothes, her face pale and haggard in the raw light. Her dark hair hung in messy locks, and her eyes shone with a mixture of pleading and something unsettling, something that made my blood run cold. "Are you okay?" I shouted, rolling down the window. "I'm lost," she replied, her voice trembling but hollow, like a distant echo. "I need to go home." His hands trembled slightly, and his skin seemed almost translucent under the light of the board. I couldn't leave her there alone in the desert. "Get in," I said, unlocking the passenger door. He slid into the seat with a slow, almost floating motion, and an icy chill filled the interior, inexplicable in the warm night. I turned up the heat, but the air was still freezing, as if emanating from it. "Where are you going?" I asked, forcing a smile to calm my nerves. "Home," he said, looking straight ahead without blinking. "Where's your house?" I insisted, feeling the conversation turn strange. "In the desert," he replied, his tone flat, almost robotic. I tried to get more details out of it. "How did you get here?" "I don't know." "Do you remember anything?" "Only the desert." His hands rested motionless in his lap, and his skin shone with an unnatural pallor. The silence between us was suffocating, and every kilometer made me feel more trapped. I spoke to fill the void. "Do you live near Phoenix?" She didn't answer, just turned her head slightly, her eyes fixed on me. A chill ran down my spine. I looked in the rearview mirror to adjust, and my heart almost stopped. My reflection was there, but hers was not. I turned quickly. She was still sitting, motionless, looking at me with those empty eyes. I tried to stay calm, but my voice was shaking. "What are you?" I whispered. He tilted his head slowly, and his eyes became black, infinite pits, without white or pupil. "I'm the one who never came back," she said, her voice echoing inside my skull like an impossible echo. The car shook violently, as if something had hit it from below. The headlights flickered, the engine roared, and it went out. I pressed the ignition over and over again, but nothing. She was still there, her face now more translucent, almost dissolving into darkness. Suddenly, the car tilted to one side, as if an invisible force lifted it up. I screamed, clutching the steering wheel as we crashed into a rock with a deafening rumble. Everything went black. I woke up lying on the sand, bruised with a throbbing head. My truck was a few meters away, destroyed, the doors open like broken jaws. She was not there. I staggered to my feet as a chorus of whispers began to surround me. "Stay. Stay." Shadows moved among the saguaros, stretching toward me. I ran toward the road, feeling cold fingers brushing against the back of my neck, my back, my arms. My breath formed clouds in the icy air, and each step was a struggle against panic. Headlights appeared in the distance. A driver picked me up, his face pale with amazement. "What are you doing here alone?" he asked. "Just get me out of here," I pleaded, looking out the back window. The desert was empty, but I knew she was still there, waiting for me. I told my friend Tom all about it on Guadalupe Road. "That road has a bad reputation," he said. "In the 50s, a woman died seeking help after an accident. They never found his body." I searched the Arizona Republic and found an article from 1953 that confirmed this. Since then, I have avoided that route at all costs. But in my apartment, in the stillness of the night, I hear a whisper calling to me from the shadows. I fear that one day I will not be able to escape. Story 2 by Sarah. Hi, I'm Sarah, and what I'm going to tell you happened during a weekend that my husband Tom and I spent at the Hotel San Carlos on Central Avenue, Phoenix. We were looking for a romantic getaway in this historic 1928 place, known for hosting stars such as Marilyn Monroe. But it also has a dark reputation, tied to the tragedy of Leone Jensen, a young woman who committed suicide by jumping off the roof in 1928, just a few months after the hotel opened. Although I'm not superstitious, Leone's story had always intrigued me, and part of me hoped that our trip would just be an uneventful adventure. However, what we experienced there left an indelible mark on me. We arrived on a Friday afternoon, after a long day of work. The hotel welcomed us with its Art Deco elegance, sparkling chandeliers, and a lobby that looked like something out of another era. We were assigned room 326, a cozy space with antique furniture and an imposing gold-framed mirror above the fireplace. The mirror immediately captivated me. Its carved wooden frame was worn by time, with details that suggested forgotten stories. But there was something about its shiny surface that made me nervous, as if it reflected more than the room. Tom, always pragmatic, laughed at my uneasiness and said it was just an old mirror. That first night we slept without problems, lulled by the faint hum of the air conditioning. But the next day, everything changed. In the morning, while I was putting on makeup in front of the mirror, I noticed something strange. In the reflection, Tom was sitting up in bed, but he was wearing a striped shirt that he hadn't brought on the trip. I turned to point at him, laughing, but he was in his underwear, flipping through a magazine on the couch. "Tom, look at this," I said, going back to the mirror. The reflection was already normal, showing Tom as he was. We shrugged, blaming light or tiredness, and set off to explore downtown Phoenix. We strolled the sun-drenched streets, visited the Arizona Science Center, and shopped for souvenirs at a local market. We had dinner at a restaurant on Monroe Street, chatting about the hotel's charm and architectural details. Everything seemed perfect, but when he returned to the room, something had changed. The air felt colder, heavier, as if the room itself was holding its breath. I sat down to brush my hair in front of the mirror, and then I saw it. A shadow moved in the corner of the reflection, a blurred silhouette that wasn't in the room. I turned quickly, but there was nothing, just the still curtains and the dim light of the lamp. The air grew even colder, and a barely audible whisper said, "Look at me." My heart skipped a beat. Tom was in the bathroom, humming as he showered, so I ran to him, shaking. "Did you hear anything?" I asked, my voice breaking. He shook his head, confused, and suggested that it was the tiredness of the day. I tried to convince myself of that, but I couldn't take my eyes off the mirror. Every time I passed by, I felt a weight on the back of my neck, as if someone were watching me from inside the glass. On Saturday, while we were having breakfast in the lobby, I spoke with the receptionist, an older man with tired eyes and a deep voice. "It's Leon Jensen," he said without hesitation. "He committed suicide in 1928, jumping off the roof. Her spirit haunts the mirrors, looking for someone to listen to her." It gave me chills, but it also piqued my curiosity. That afternoon, I went to the Phoenix Library and found a 1928 article in the Arizona Republic. Leon, 22, left farewell notes, one mentioning unpaid debts and unrequited love. Rumors spoke of a broken heart that brought her to the brink, and some guests claimed to have seen her figure in the hotel's mirrors. That night, the room felt different, as if the air was charged with static electricity. Tom fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the day, but I couldn't close my eyes. The mirror seemed to call to me, its surface glistening in the moonlight filtering through the window. Every time I passed by, I felt a tug, as if something invited me to look. I decided to confront him. I lit a candle, sat in front of the mirror and whispered, "Leon, what do you want?" The glass fogged up suddenly, as if someone was breathing on it from the other side. My reflection began to distort. My face lengthened. My eyes sank, as if I were decomposing. Then I saw her. A woman in a white dress appeared in the mirror, her skin pale and her dark, sad eyes fixed on me. Her hair hung in wet locks, and her expression was one of infinite pain. He stretched out a hand, and an icy chill pierced my chest, as if touching my soul. I screamed at the top of my lungs, and Tom awoke, running towards me. "What's wrong?" he exclaimed, but the figure had already vanished. The mirror was still fogged up, and a small footprint marked the glass, as if a hand had pressed down from within. We couldn't stay any longer. We packed up in a hurry and left at dawn, leaving that cursed room behind. As we drove down Central Avenue, I looked toward the hotel, and I swear I saw a figure in our room window watching us. The receptionist wasn't surprised when we told him. "Others have seen Leone," he said. "Some here crying on the 7th floor. Since then, I have not returned to the San Carlos. In my house on Van Buren Street, I sometimes see a fleeting shadow on the bathroom mirror, and a whisper says my name in the dim light. I don't know if Leone followed me, or if he just left a portion of his pain with me, but his presence still haunts me." Story 3, by Mike. Hi, I'm Mike, a security guard at the Pioneer Living History Museum in North Phoenix near I-17. This place recreates a 19th century village with Victorian houses, a school, and an opera house. By day, it is a historical site full of tourists. At night, it transforms into something I can't explain. I always laughed at rumors about ghosts, but one night in April, I discovered that they weren't just stories. It was my midnight shift, patrolling under a moon that painted the town black and white. The shadows of the houses twisted in the wind, and the creaking of old wood filled the air. He had worked there for 2 years, accustomed to the stillness of the night. But that night the air was heavier, as if the museum were holding its breath. As I passed by the school, a sound stopped me in my tracks. Childish laughter, clear and playful, as if a group of children were running inside. I thought they were intruders, maybe teenagers pulling a joke, so I pulled out my flashlight and went inside. The classroom was empty, but the desks were messy, some overturned, as if someone had moved them on purpose. The smell of dust and old wood permeated the air, and the blackboard was covered in fuzzy chalk, as if someone had hastily written and erased something. The laughter stopped, leaving a silence that made my blood run cold. I checked every corner, but no one was there. "It's just the wind," I murmured, though there was no breeze at all. I continued my round, but when I reached the opera, a shadow crossed the stage, swift and silent, like a figure running between the curtains. I ran there, flashlight in hand, but the place was deserted, just dust and cobwebs floating in the beam of light. Then, from the school, came a soft song, a lullaby that could hardly be heard, as if it came from far away. I went back, and on the blackboard, written in chalk in crooked letters, it said, "Help us." My breathing quickened. I pulled out my phone to record, but the screen flickered and turned off. I checked the security cameras from the office, but they didn't show anything out of the ordinary, just static in the school canal. The next day, I spoke with Rosa, my shift partner. "The neighbors say they hear laughter at night," he told me, his voice low. "They say they are the children of the people." A historian at the museum mentioned a fever epidemic in 1880 that killed several children. I found an article in the Arizona Republic that confirmed it. Entire families decimated, their bodies buried near where the museum now stands. I decided to keep a closer watch, even though a part of me wanted to ignore it. For days, the laughter returned, always from school, sometimes accompanied by light footsteps or soft knocks on the windows. One night, I recorded with my phone while on patrol. I captured a blurry figure running down the hallway, but when I played it, it vanished into thin air like smoke. My heart was pounding, but I needed answers. Armed with courage, I decided to spend a night inside the school. At midnight, footsteps returned, echoing in the wooden hallway. I walked into the classroom, and there they were. 3 children in old clothes, sitting at desks, their faces pale and their eyes dark as wells. One raised his hand and pointed to the blackboard. The words had changed. "Stay with us." I tried to speak, to ask who they were, but my voice choked in my throat. The children rose in unison, approaching with silent steps, their faces motionless, but their eyes fixed on me. I backed away, looking for the door, but it slammed shut, trapping me. I felt cold hands in my arms, pulling me toward the center of the classroom. My flashlight flickered and went out, leaving me in the shadows. The air turned cold, and a chorus of childish laughter filled the room, echoing in my head. A horn from far away from Interstate 17 broke the silence, and the pressure subsided. The door opened by itself, and I ran out, stumbling on the gravel, without looking back. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I would explode. Since then, I have avoided night school. My colleagues say that sometimes they see lights flickering inside, but I don't get close. At my home on Deer Valley Road, childlike laughter haunts me, echoing in the hallway on the darkest nights. I don't know if those children are looking for help or just company, but something tells me that they are not done with me. I hope these stories have given you chills. If you like them, subscribe to Mr. Night Terrors for more scary tales. Do you have a supernatural experience to share? Send it and tell us from which city you see us. In the dark, there is always something watching us. Until next time.